Okay, today we are going to talk about every single difference between the TV show Wheel of Time and the books. Now, do realize that this is an 815-page book, so no, I will not be going line by line to tell you every single tiny little difference, but we'll be covering the main and prominent differences between these two. Nobody wants to watch a 2-hour video, at least I don't think so. So let's get into episode 1. Let's first start with character appearances. In the book, it's extremely notable that Rand is the tallest by far, so I think it's very interesting that in this scene we see that Perrin looks taller than Rand. It's just something that's mentioned so frequently. I think it was an interesting choice that they made. Also, Rand has very prominent gray eyes. I couldn't really tell because the show was a little bit dark, but it didn't seem like his eyes were super gray, but you know, I'll give that one to them. I think Rand actually looks pretty good. Perrin and Mat do not have beards. Perrin's growing a beard is like a significant plot point later in the book, so I feel like this is a choice. I also don't like that it makes Mat look pretty old. Mat, I always feel like, was the youngest of the three in feel. Mat, Perrin, and Egwene and Nynaeve should technically be the same race. The Two Rivers is very homogenous, and that's why Rand sticks out. I will say, you know what, it's hard with fantasy because you don't really know what the race of anybody is. I will say personally, I imagine them all looking a lot like Egwene, so I really like how they made her look. I actually quite like the look of all the characters minus the beard thing, so I think they look good. There are going to be some people who complain about it, so I wanted to point it out. Also, Fates look like normal humans, just without eyes, so they made them a little bit more monstrous in this version. Some notable costume changes. Aes Sedai's rings do not have that stone dictating their Aja. It's only a small gold ring with a snake biting its tail. Additionally, Aes Sedai do not wear these giant colorful outfits of their Aja. They simply have a shawl where the fringe is their Aja color, and this is only worn at very formal occasions. It's not worn very often. In fact, just in general, the show is much freer with Aes Sedai announcing themselves, which is something that definitely doesn't happen, especially in the first book. Moiraine was also dressed as a high lady to those in the Two Rivers, so she was wearing like a satin or silk dress, not pants. As far as character traits go, honestly, I think they did a pretty good job of getting the feel of the characters right off the bat, but there are a couple things I wanted to mention. Egwene is 2 years younger than the boys in the book, not the same age. I think aging her up was a very good decision. Moiraine is not as rude in the novels when she first appears in the Two Rivers and is in fact very kind and very unassuming. I think that was kind of an interesting character choice. I don't really know how I feel about it. Mat is also much younger acting in the novels. He is kind of like the immature one, and his pranks are very much more stupid teenage boy, letting all the animals out of a corral or something, setting fireworks off. Definitely not this kind of edge that we see Mat here. I also feel like Rand in these episodes acts a little bit more like later book Rands, like perhaps books 3 and 4 and 5. I don't think this was a bad decision. I actually quite like how they portrayed Rand. Let's get into the plot and watch this episode minute by minute. So right off the bat, yes, they don't know who the dragon is, but they know it's a man in the book. It doesn't really make sense for it to be a woman because they wouldn't be as fearful of the dragon if it was a woman. Women can touch the source without being tainted. The male half of the source is tainted. They can go insane, which is why the idea of a man who can channel, who's supposed to save the world and destroy it, is so scary. So I get that they wanted to add more tension. I don't really understand how this really works within the book's, zeitgeist. This scene is not seen in the book, although we do hear about the Red Aja finding and tracking down false dragons or men who can channel and gentling them. So I think this was a good scene to kind of show that. I also know that she doesn't get named till episode 3, but I immediately knew this was Liandrin, so I thought that was A+ casting. Nynaeve pushing Egwene into the river never happens. In fact, the women in town, specifically the women's circle, always talk about how rash men are and doing these stupid things. They would consider this a stupid thing and would never do it. As such, the entire scene of them coming in and clapping for Egwene and she's being excited doesn't happen. She just braids her hair and it's like, cool, she's a woman now. Moiraine comes in way more nicely, is kind to everyone, and is kind of just trying to find out info. Nobody knows that she's Aes Sedai. She keeps that hidden. In fact, people in the Two Rivers don't believe really Aes Sedai. They know they exist, but they're very mythical to them. They never kind of see that stuff. Okay, this one is wild. Perrin is not married in the books. This wife does not exist. This change is wild to me. I'll talk about how I feel about it later. Mat also does not come from a broken or difficult homes in the novel. No, nor is he protective over his sisters like this. He does have 2 younger sisters in the novels, but he talks about them more as the people who tattle on him. He is the oldest. This whole thing doesn't give. I think this is an attempt to give us feelings for who Mat is and give an understanding that Mat is a very good person with some kind of complexities and things going on. I think as a setup to what is going to happen later in the show/novel, which I won't give away, that changes Mat's personality a bit. So I think this is trying to kind of give us some more backstory. I can't fault them for that. Egwene and Rand are more like promised to each other. How do I explain it? They are just assumed that they will get married and be together because that's just how this town is. But as far as we know, they have never even kissed through the entire book series. Like, even holding hands is a big deal. Like, I don't even think they hold hands. Like, he's scared to dance with her. Like, they're super shy. So they were not sleeping together. So this was kind of a big surprise. I was really about this, but I actually got on board later. We'll talk about it. This bath scene doesn't happen, and I just felt like I need to talk about it because it weirds me out. No one need to see Lan's butt, okay? This entire thing about the wisdom not being able to marry is not really a thing in the books. Egwene is planning on training under Nynaeve, and she does tell Rand that wisdoms rarely marry, but she says it more in like a coy way, like a teasing, flirting way than like drama. It's not a thing. It's just really not a thing. This thing with Pat and Fane, with Matt like stealing and selling things, doesn't happen. That's just like not their relationship. Matt does like to buy things from him, but Fane does have a little bit more of a role in the book. He is the one who brings news of the outside to everybody, of all of the wars and skirmishes that are happening and all of these false dragons that are popping up. He kind of sends a tizzy throughout the town. So he's the one who does that, and he doesn't really serve that purpose here. This scene just doesn't happen. Nynaeve was born in the Two Rivers. In the novels, there is no question that she might be the Dragon Reborn, again, because it's not a woman thing. Also, this whole thing about turning her mentor away from the White Tower for being too much of a country bumpkin just like definitely is not a thing in the book. In the book, Aes Sedai are always wanting to get people who can channel because they will most likely kill themselves or others if they are not trained. It will like burn them out, or they won't know how to wield it. So they take everyone they can to the White Tower. Now, does everyone become Aes Sedai? No. They turn a lot of people away once they have made sure that they're going to be safe with their powers. But the idea of like, oh, I have a long memory, you turned her away for being a country bumpkin, like it just isn't a thing. This is a really interesting scene because the attack on Trollocs of the town technically does happen. We just don't get to read about it. We know it happens, but during this time, we are only ever in Rand's head up at the farm. So we see that scene between Rand and Tam where like they're killing the Trolloc, but it is much longer. We see the whole time where Rand is desperately trying to get his father back to town before his father dies from that wound. And so we never really see what happens in the town. I do think this was a good choice because obviously what was happening in the town is way more interesting. So I understand that. What we do miss is Tam gives a very important piece of information for the plot during like his injured kind of fever dreams. I'm guessing they're going to say it later, so I will not say what it is here as it is a very important plot point. I'm guessing they're going to push that to later for reasons that I don't want to spoil. Also, I should mention that all three of the male characters, Perrin, Matt, and Rand, saw the Fade before Beltane. So they all had seen the Fade previously. And Rand actually is running away from the Fade as he tries to save his father. Nynaeve is not carried off by a Trolloc. She is actually there when Rand brings his father back. So that's never a thing. Nynaeve is always there. And I just wanted to mention this. I think they do this for the viewer of the show. I don't know. I don't think people in world can see it, but just in case, you cannot see the weaves of the One Power, so they often show that. I think they're trying to show it so something's happening, but yeah, that's not a thing in the books. Oh yeah, so this scene, I mean, like, his wife doesn't exist in the book, so none of this is happening. He doesn't, go berserk killing a Trolloc. I will say he does go berserk killing someone else later in the novel. I won't say who it is just in case they keep that scene in. And I think this is supposed to be reminiscent of that, but yeah, he does not kill his wife because he didn't have one. So in the novels, I will say that specifically the three boys' homes were targeted, not the entire town, even though there is some carnage, which plays into the fact of Moiraine telling them they need to leave because they are the ones being attacked. So Tam is healed by Moiraine, but not this quickly. He is in really bad shape and has to kind of be in the inn for a long time sleeping. And Nynaeve is actually still there because she wasn't carried off and tries to heal him first and is unsuccessful. And the crew does not leave right away like this. It is actually not until the evening, and it's only supposed to be Rand, Matt, and Perrin. And Rand stays with his father until he kind of wakes up and has this conversation with his father. And as they're going to leave, Egwene shows up and is like, I want to come too. I want to be trained as Aes Sedai. I want to go on an adventure. And the three boys like, you can't come. And Moiraine's like, yeah, you should come. So yeah, that's how it happens. Also, Nynaeve just doesn't know that they left. They kind of sneak away. Also important, an entire character is missing actually from this moment. Tom Merrilin, who we do meet in episode 3, is actually in town as a gleeman, performing for Beltane, and decides to leave with the boys and Egwene at this time. So Tom is with them from the very beginning. We'll talk about Tom later. Okay. And for those who have not seen the book, this ending monologue that they end on with Moiraine saying is how every book of the Wheel of Time starts, with only slight differences. You know, how the wheel turns and it is a beginning. I am so glad they ended on this. It is such a classic line from Wheel of Time. It just made my heart very happy. I won't lie, with this first episode, I really struggled with how many differences there were from the book. I was really feeling wary about it and feeling not very confident. Some things that I absolutely loved, they cast a actual 40-year-old woman as Moiraine, or someone who's in her 40s. Moiraine is in her 40s, but she's often described as looking very young and ageless because of her Aes Sedai powers, and it would have been so easy to cast a very young woman to deal with that agelessness, and they didn't, and it was such a good choice because Moiraine needs to have a strength to her, and she needs to have that age, and I just love that casting. In fact, I'm pretty happy with how everybody is represented in this portion. I will say Matt has a little less levity than he does in the books, and I am a little bummed about that, but I get it. But I'm struggling with a lot of the changes. I will say a lot of these changes make much more sense in the context of episodes 2 and 3, so I will be talking about those, particularly Perrin's wife, which I think was a strong choice. I'm not feeling great about it, but we'll talk about that in later episodes, and that they made Egwene and Rand have a much more adult relationship, which shocked me when I first watched this, but as I'll talk in other episodes, I'm kind of on board with. I think it ended up being a good choice. So I'm gonna do my next video. I'm gonna link it up here if you wanna know about all the changes in episode 2 and my thoughts on that. It won't be done right away, but it should probably be done by the time you're watching this video. So if you like these kind of videos and want to see more Wheel of Time content, please subscribe. And if you want to see what I'm currently reading, as long as other nerdy rants, you can follow me on Instagram at bookborn.reviews. I'll see you next time. Bye.